Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are back. Quinny, this is the 3/4 of a century, episode 75 in the bank of the End Product podcast. We've got some regulars already up in the chat. Shout out to Ian Sorare, Ricardo Cunha, Gareth Hughes, all the gang that are kind of showing up nice and early. Good to have you on board. And to anyone else that's listening in the future via Quinny's YouTube channel, via Spotify, via wherever you're listening to podcasts. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff, as Quinny says. And as always, I am joined by Quinny, my sparring partner. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Just fixing my wee camera. Sorry if there's any noise with the mic there. But yeah, man, I'm good. Absolutely buzzing for you, Stish. It was a weekend of misery for me. I opted to go into D1 and I kind of regretted it quite quickly when I didn't get as many decisives as I did the week before. But it made my weekend seeing, obviously, yourself reigning supreme, dropping podiums again as per, and not getting a goalkeeper.
that was the big bonus, wasn't it? I think I was definitely expecting a goalkeeper. When I was looking at the pools and stuff, I thought, there was like a little chunk of the pool that was like 3 or 4 keepers in a row, and I thought, if I hit that chunk, man, like I'm gonna get a goalkeeper. But managed to win All-Star Rare Plus, which is probably, in my opinion, the best one to win because you get that extra added bonus of a nice cash reward landing top of that one. So got a really nice cash reward and managed to pick up a Harry Kane, which is an ideal reward for me, really, because I think it really starts to open up a second, like, really strong entry. I think having Mbappe naturally put me into Rare Plus with like a really strong lineup because I've got a couple of decent super rares that score regularly well in O'Reilly and Veerman. So yeah, All-Star Rare Plus has been the one for me of late, just because other places haven't really been banging how I'd hoped them to. But now having that Harry Kane, that really does open up Champ probably Rare for me, maybe not Rare Plus. I do have some good Champ supers, but nothing that's like consistently hitting like those 70 pluses with the AA, a bit like the Veermans and O'Reillys that you can kind of plug into a lineup and expect them to push for that sort of 100 and even better 100 plus scores. So yeah, Harry Kane, absolutely buzzing. People in the chat are asking, how did my son take the news? He was extremely excited. I went in, and because the previous week when I won U23 Rare, he came on. We did a little short live stream where I opened the rewards and won Van der Voort. And we were both pretty excited to win a Van der Voort, but it's not quite the same when you win a goalkeeper or a card you've already got. So this weekend he wasn't with me because I did a live quiz on my Twitch in the lead up to then opening my rewards. Some of the people who are with us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are, were involved in that quiz. And we ended that stream with the live opening of the card. And my son was probably like getting himself washed at that time of day. So I come indoors after and I just kind of showed him the recording of the Twitch stream. And he was extremely excited. And even better, cherry on top, is we're actually going to England versus Malta tomorrow. So hopefully get to see him hitting a decisive for the lads on his first game week in the rotation. So yeah, all round amazing game week. A lot of end product to report, but to mention, back to your mention actually, Quinny, definitely a nice little talking point to kind of probably kickstart us is you mentioned there that you did go all out. You went into a unique division for the first time. Was it the first time you've gone in there? And you hit some pretty decent scores. I know a couple of decisives there. But you mentioned you felt a little bit disappointed that you didn't in the end just kind of like plug them into the super rare divisions and I guess the pro divisions. So it kind of brings up that point that I think we've kind of touched on a few times, is the importance of figuring out where to plug your big cards. And I figured that that'd be a really good place to start, is the thought process. I know you were kind of thinking about it just before we finished the end of last week's podcast. So I just wonder like how much deliberation was there before you decided to go in that unique, and what were the thoughts that you kind of took away from it?
It's a tough one because I guess anyone that plays across 2 scarcities will have this decision to make at some point. But for me with that one, It was a case of the week before the fixtures looked like a stars aligning moment, and they would have finished like I think it was 9th. It would have got, and so it looked again. The fixtures, I'm like, oh, they're not quite as sweet as they were last week, but they're not really that different. And I really did regret not doing it last time, and like I do kind of regret doing it because Scales and Hart dropped huge scores for super rares that in the division below would have made huge difference to the teams that I had running around there without them. So it was mainly an opportunity missed in the my regular kind of play that I'm a wee bit regretful of not pulling something from. But I know that when I'm laying my cards out throughout the season, and the scarcity above cards I've got now, like the black ones, for example, are a really good example. And people listening to this are maybe dealing with this with reds or yellows or blues, depending on what they're playing with. But when you get them and you've not got that many of them, and they're a really prized part of your gallery, you say to yourself when you pick them up, there'll be 1 week, maybe 2, over this season where they might have their moment in the sun. They're at home to the bottom of the table, or they're on penalties this week, or who knows what happens. So looking at the fixtures, I thought, you know what? I maybe missed the opportunity last week. I maybe bottled it a bit. This week isn't too different. Let's just roll them out. Let's just go for it. And, say that's one of the, last week was a time I should have played them and I didn't. This week is maybe a time I should play them and I'm gonna. And maybe over the season, maybe my squad, my little batch that I've got, could play that division like 5 times a season. Well, I've done it twice and I can just kind of leave it at arm's distance now for a little while and wait until I see these fixtures come back round, and I'll have confidence then at that point of knowing, oh, well, the fixtures are that sweet this time that I've got to do it. So I feel like it's more of a, even though it's the opportunity cost is so rare, he didn't play the cards in the division properly, or, air quotes, properly to maximize them. There's a wee bit of that, but I do feel the lesson taken from it. Yeah. And just the confidence of knowing, like, do you know what? If I do fancy it, go for it. I think that will pay off later and it'll make the pain the now worthwhile.
Yeah, I feel that definitely. I was saying to someone in the week that I think I streamed a couple of weeks ago, like my whole process of picking my lineups from like complete from scratch, just to show people how long it takes and like where, like where am I finding the information on all the players? How many fixtures have I got to look at? But also how I use Sorare data to kind of try and figure out where is like a really strong entry point for me. And like your dilemma there kind of highlights that. I think a big part at the moment of picking your lineups is figuring out where the strength lies in your gallery. Like where can you play to your strengths in any given game week, and then totally get the sentiment there of having those uniques in play. And like you said, the fixtures did look good for them. And actually, Edouard popped up with a goal in there. You got a clean sheet. So across the board, your team did actually perform pretty well. But in that unique level up, I guess you're playing against people that might have 5 uniques or 4 uniques and 1 super. And, if you're not hitting the big scores, and I think that if you look at that I've never played unique for that reason, really, is that I didn't ever feel that my uniques were all going to line up. The stars align, as you said. And just didn't fall into place for you. And I find that in Rare Plus a lot at the moment. If I'm trying to put out a good team into like maybe Cap 240 Super, then that will weaken my options in one of the Rare Plus divisions. So that finds me a little bit more now going sod Rare Plus, go heavy and rare, heavy, and make sure I've got a good, at least Cap 240 Super, and then maybe an All-Star or U23, depending on fixtures. I might make sure that a good lineup goes into one of those super rare divisions. And that's been working out okay for me. But it does mean that where I have been going into that Rare Plus with Veerman and Matt O'Reilly, then my U23 is going to suffer for not having that O'Reilly super rare in it. And, like Challenger is pretty much written off as far as the top prizes go if I don't use Veerman there. So, yeah, big part of it at the moment, isn't it? Just trying to select where to play, because there are so many players out there with the supply that is of the cards are available to people at the moment. They can pick up the players they want and they can play the players they want, and it means that the big stacks are winning on any potentially given game week, in potentially in Challenger especially, I think. But But yeah, you really do have to hit big scores now, and I think that goes across any scarcity, doesn't it? But particularly in rare plus, I find if you haven't got the heavy hitting supers, because those, if you can hit like a little 110, 120 score with one of your cards or two of them, even better. And then if your captain hits as well and the goalkeeper keeps a clean sheet, then you are amongst it. You're right amongst it. But without all of that happening, you're probably finishing like 80th to 90th at the moment, the way the scores are going. At least that how it seems to be for me anyway.
It is Unforgiven. One decisive would have swung the tide for me, and it would look genius again, like it would have the week before. So very, very fine margins. Not many cards, not many people up there, and you find that if you're going from yellow to red to blue, whatever, it's a kind of it's like a compounding element of the game. The higher you go, just there's less people to fend off, but there's less room for error. Like a clean sheet goalkeeper and a goal scoring striker isn't enough. You need to also have something else that just makes the team pop a little bit harder. So yeah, lesson learned for me. But one thing that I have to pull you up on, Stish, before we move past it, is when you mentioned you've won Kane, the thing that you seemed to say it opens up for you is champ rare, like D4 to the old heads like us. And if I was listening to this podcast not on it, I would have probably crashed my car hearing that, because Harry Kane is the best striker in the game, Stish. And how can you win that and put it into a D4 set? And is that not going to walk into your Veerman O'Reilly team every week?
Well, it depends, I think, on whether or not his fixture is better than Mbappe, because I've now got the option of Mbappe or Kane. So it's like, do I put Kane and Mbappe? Well, I can't at the moment. If I'm going to use O'Reilly and Veerman, I can't use two forwards. So for me, in my head, it's like O'Reilly and Veerman are probably, are two of those players in my gallery that, because they play at such overpowered teams in the divisions that they play in, that nearly every week is an opportunity for them to score 70 plus. So putting both of those in as super rares in a rare plus, then it's like, right, well, what's my forward slot? Is that going to be Mbappe or is it going to be Kane as it stands, right? And hopefully, like, with time to come, it might be like, or is it going to be Sesko or is it going to be Cecilia? Like, but at the moment, given what I've got and what I can select from, those two are the two sort of like nailed on. Doesn't really matter what fixture they've got. They've got an opportunity to score 1-2 goals, maybe an assist or two as well. So they're always 100 capable in any game week. Even like Kane against Dortmund recently, which would have been one of the tougher fixtures. He's put up like a 90 plus or whatever. And Mbappe can do that as well. So the reason I say that is like, because I think it is so important now to hit very big if you really want to like get into those. Maybe like the cash prizes, so not necessarily the top 3, top 4, but I'm always thinking, can I get into the top 20, top 50, top 10? And I think that when you've got Kane, I think I've got the other pieces in rare, definitely, because let's say in champ, at the moment I've got Ter Stegen and Donnarumma, who are similar in like that. Kane Mbappe is like, both of those are decisive, capable on any given game week. PSG or Barca can keep a clean sheet, maybe 4 weeks out of 5 when they're playing well. So that means to me, I can put a really strong lineup in All-Star Rare, but still have a good goalkeeper and forward that I can slot into another lineup. So that might be All-Star Rare, or it might be Champ Rare. The reason I say rare as opposed to rare plus is my two main super rare options there, O'Reilly and Veerman, are probably going to be in rare plus all-star. That leaves maybe the next best ones I might have in champ would be like Robertone, maybe. And then I'm trying to think of what other supers I've got. Maybe Frimpong from Leverkusen, or Kosunu Odilon, he put up a big score this weekend, but most of the time you're looking at 55 to 60 for him. So once you add the super rare bonus, it might be like a 75, something like that, which isn't really enough in champ rare plus. I'm sure I see Nanzo in the chat. I'm sure he will agree with me. This is a man who knows his way around the podiums, and I don't think that me, with like, even with my Kane and my Donnarumma, with my Frimpong and my Robertone super rare, and let's say like Di Lorenzo at the back or Tomori, that isn't going to get near the likes of Nanzo or, the likes of anyone who's holding a Liverpool stack, Bayern stack. I don't think I can compete with them, but I do think that I can get into the cash places with Donnarumma, Kane, Musiala, Di Lorenzo and let's say Wirtz, and putting that team into the old D4 or just the rare. Champ rare, that team can compete, in my opinion. But I don't think that when I take my super rares into account, I don't think I've got the minerals for rare plus champ every week. Maybe on the odd game week. So that's why I think of champ rare, because I think that in terms of like return, that team, I do have a team that should be able to get into at least a tier 3 plus, at least. Whereas I think if I go into rare plus, you're shooting for the heavens. You need your supers to hit big. I think I've got rares that can hit big, but not supers. So then it boils down to is it time to reinvest, or is it time to have a reshuffle and try and bring in like a massive super rare that maybe goes with a Kane. Like, so I've got Musiala and Kane, so maybe that suit like a Kim Min-jae or something like that super maybe would make sense, or like a Marquinhos that I could pair with Donnarumma. But then it's like, reshuffling the gallery is the next issue. There is who wants to let go of those supers. Like, unless someone's selling up the gallery, you don't often see those supers at a reasonable price, and I would have to swap a lot to get there that I'd have to like part ways with. And at the moment, all the kinds of cards that I want to part ways with in my gallery are not going to be of any use to anyone who's sat on a Kim Min-jae super. You know what I mean? Like, no one's swapping like 20 cards for their super rares, except for some of the bot accounts, the trader accounts. But yeah, again, a lot of them won't want a trade with like 20 plus rares in it. And yeah, I'm trying desperately to hold on to as much ETH at the moment as possible. So yeah, I'm kind of, that's my thinking at the minute. But yeah, I can compete, definitely.
Fair play. And I think one of the things we were really excited to talk about on the podcast this week was we've both now finally been rivaled up. We've been in rivals. I don't know about you, Stish, but my phone, honestly, I've had to charge my battery so many more times now than kept my phone on Do Not Disturb on a constant basis. The notifications have been flooding in. We had a comment in the live recording on twitch.tv/Plastician earlier on asking how I enjoyed the Japan game. And that was the first game where I had some pro cards involved. And I'm going to say, I really number one, I seen the team come out. This is probably one of my favourite parts about the whole thing so far, Stish. I seen the team come out, and I'd picked Tomiyasu in defence. And when I seen the team, and I was like, oh, no Tomiyasu. And I was like, oh, no, man, I've ruined it already. And then I remembered, hold on a minute. I'm pretty sure Andy Laird and the good guys over at Sorare Data mentioned you can quickly run in and edit this. So I quickly ran in, got the Japanese Rolls Royce, Koki Machida, to anyone that's familiar.
Used to have him, yeah.
Yeah, got him in the team. And I was like, here we go, ready to rock. And unfortunately, I had 3 pro cards. I had Daiichi Kamada as captain, rocked in an 85 pro card as well, buzzing with the points for that. Ao Tanaka dropped in an assist for Kamada's goal. So double decisive at FC Barcelona with some OGs, Tanaka and Kamada. 80-point scores. But up front, I had Taki Kubo, my pro card, who DNP'd. So I think out of my 25 rivals on the Japan game, I probably won like half of them. And it was probably only because I had some pro cards that maybe separated me from the pack, as it were. But yeah, we've opened it up, both of us. I'm having a whale of a time with it, despite there being no rewards on the table yet. But I think it's a quality game mode and great banter so far. How have you found it?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And I'm just having a little look at that. I had quite a nice little lineup for the Japan. I think some of these fixtures obviously are like heavily weighted one side, aren't they? So like you've just got to kind of pick like what you think will be the best 5 from who is obviously going to run out winners. And yeah, I didn't have any pro cards in the mix of the Japan game. I actually sold a limited Osako Goalkeeper and a rare Tanaka recently. So I sold out of a couple of my cards. I've had a Minamino in the past. I've had a Machida in the past as well. But yeah, I scored really well in that, 453 points. So a little plus 20 on my, like, I don't know what you call that, like your lightning bolt score or whatever it's going to end up being called. But yeah, I did that game. I did the Israel-Swiss game last night, and I did the Australia-Bangladesh game. Hit pretty big in that one as well. I did have a Matt Ryan goalkeeper limited involved in that, who gave me a nice little boost. And I've even just thrown in a bit of fun Thailand, China lineup, but I did go quite heavy China. And I've just seen that Thailand are 1 goal up, so not expecting them too much to come home from that. But I do find myself winning 19 of the lineups that I've put in. I've only got 1 Thai player in there in the middle, but I think as a game mode, the thing that I weren't sure how involved in it I would get. Obviously, at the moment, it's nice to have a little go of it, see how it works, figure out how you're supposed to play it. So I made the mistake yesterday of using a substitution in the Swiss game, thinking that, like if I make a sub, I used a sub thinking that it might be like adding a 6th score to your team. So at half time, I subbed out the lowest scoring card and put in like Shaqiri, who was on the bench, thinking he'll come in. He's got to get some minutes at some point in the game, surely, right? He didn't, but it meant that I lost the scores from that first half player that I took out. So yeah, lesson learned there. I guess the substitute is purely for people who maybe didn't check the lineups right up to like kickoff, to only use players who have started the game.
If you get a guy with a red card or has had an absolute nightmare
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, that would be the time, I guess, to use it if you've literally like hit a negative decisive somewhere, maybe swap it out. But yeah, I love it as a game mode. I think I'm getting a little bit used to the user interface. I'm still like, oh, where's my scores gone? And I'm getting used to that a little bit. But I like it. One thing I do think it does for me is, given it's international week, whatever, it kind of itches the Sorare itch a little bit, even when you've not got a lot going on. So like even these games that are not really covered, you can still have a little mess about and for fun, like try and level up. I've won a few coins. It looks like, I don't know if those coins are actually like real life Sorare coins, but I noticed that if you go into that kind of like the play dashboard, there's that manager assistant bit down the bottom of it under like pro and rivals. And I had a couple of notifications there, and it's like, reached the local coach status, claimed 250. So I've claimed quite a few Sorare coins already. And yeah, I know, like, I remember Dan talking on the Sorare Data podcast about how they wanted to try and like make Sorare coins like more useful to people. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they come to like reward players of this game. Because my feelings, I don't know about you, but I feel like it doesn't make sense for them to necessarily reward many cards, if at all, in this game mode. It might be more coins, merch, experiences, match tickets, stuff like that doesn't really affect the overall supply, but hopes to maybe offer enough that maybe people will buy a card because they want that boost. And that might be how it entices people to start spending on the platform. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think it will be obviously still in beta. There's nothing actually on for grabs at the moment. I would be interested to see what they activate in this and how they display it on the UI, because when I'm kind of messing about with this, and you're thinking about like, how do you make this game mode marketable, appealing? Why would someone download it and play it beyond just some fun with your mate? Because that's fine, right? But you know, most people need some motivation to do things in life. You know, why am I going to bother? Why am I going to put the effort in? And then eventually, why am I going to spend a couple of quid on a card to make it worthwhile to beat random people or the guy sitting next to me in the pub or whatever? So I think that will be the real, barometer. That'll be the real thing of like, you know, how enticing is it to go and pick up a £4 limited to boost your team? You know, does it mean that, you know, like now they're doing a giveaway where it's like and share one of their posts or invite friends or something like that. The refer a friends thing, and like win VIP Dortmund stuff and all that. So is it, do they maybe slide a wee prize like that into Rivals for their Klassiker? You know, whoever wins Rivals their Klassiker this year will get a ticket for next year, or whoever wins, you know, like the Dortmund one the week before and whoever wins the Bayern one the week before, both of them get a ticket each, or, you know, who knows, you know, but so it'll be interested to see what assets they deploy against it to make it exciting to the man on the street.
Nanzo's actually in the chat saying that he is now adding Rivals to his SO5 scouting toolkit, and that's an interesting take on it. That's one that I hadn't really thought about, but I guess if you pick some random player who's kind of without card in Rivals, you might become a little bit more aware of them if they do ever kind of come onto the platform. You'd be like, oh, that's that Australian international that banged like 4 goals in that game. So I guess It does. And another user in the chat, I have to go a bit further up, but they mentioned, where are we? I think it was Parrot Press said that they watched the Japan. Yep, they watched the Japan game earlier this morning due to Rivals, which they wouldn't have watched. So I guess it does, doesn't it? It kind of gives you the Sorare itch a little bit, kind of like you do treat it a little bit like, you know, your regular kind of like pro output, which is good. And I think the more football it gets you watching, the better it will make you at like the pro side of the game. So it is interesting thinking of it as a kind of scouting toolkit. There was another.
I think that Nanzo comment's perfect, because that was one of the things I was rather annoyed with the change in eligibility that they made for the common game, because I know the commons are just 6 divisions. It's not quite as widespread as Rivals is, but you know, I really enjoyed that for, that guy, I'm waiting for his rare to come down in price, or maybe one day I get lucky and get this guy super rare, but I can play with him in common and have some fun and keep my finger on the pulse with how they're getting on. So I was rather annoyed that they changed the eligibility around that. And I never even thought, like, Nanzo's one step ahead of the game as per, the Rivals could fill that void in essence, you know, because you don't need, for anyone that's not played Rivals yet, literally every bloody game that's Opta scored is on it. And even if there's no cards, they're just a whiteout silhouette, and it's their their name, just like Global Cup for the custom series cards for, you know, that kind of thing. It's just like everyone's available to an extent, or in the known squad, certainly anyway. Which is great, but you don't need to play them all. You can just pick and choose as you go. And I was looking at some of the stats and some of the stuff you were mentioning there, Stish, in terms of the user interface, and I think it's really clever. And I think it's probably one step away, depending on user engagement from the incumbent. You know, me, you, Nanzo, everyone in the chat. If we all take to Rivals quite quickly, because if you look at the, how did I get back into it again? So you go to play Rivals. No, you go to My Club. And then, we go to My Club and it says see rival history. Up there, it tells you like your overall score, like 30. I've got 32 matches won, 22 lost, head-to-head Rivals. And that was over the Israel game last night and the Japan game today. So I see Nanzo's in all of them, which is fine. And you can just go and click through them all and just pick teams. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing to lose at this respect at the moment. So it's one of those ones. But when you look at when you click into the see rivals history, I get a friends leaderboard and their overall leaderboard. And that's the little lightning points that you were talking about. So maybe like a progress bar. I don't know if that triggers anyone at home, but I'm still deemed an apprentice. I've got 115 points. And I think you start at 100.
Yeah.
But Hoodwink is top of my friends leaderboard. He's on 322. Crazy. And then when you see the overall leaderboard, I don't know the guy that's top, Imeric. He's got 443. But the guy in second is Wenmoon, or AJ to some.
Yes.
He's in second.
All right.
So, and when I look at mine here, it says arena wins. I'm in the top 17% of people that have played this so far. And I think some of these little leaderboards, top 17% overall, this might be the street cred, I'm a high ranking Sorare player kind of thing, or this is how you set your stall out as being, that guy knows his stuff, rather than just, he's got really expensive cards, so that's how he wins. Because this is anything goes. Yes, pro cards help you. They boost you up against the whites, the commons, whatever we're calling them. But it's still much more of a badge of honor system in here. Like you say, the rankings and everything, the ELO rate and the points, how it's all kind of dressed up. So really engaging game mode for me.
I really like it. Yeah, I'm having a little look now, and I've seen like this is now, people used to ask like, why do you follow anyone on Sorare? We don't really like. Is kind of like here's a good reason. Friends leaderboard, like just follow the accounts of people that you want to kind of compete against in your own. I think the next iteration of it will be like setting up mini leagues, like set up your own kind of private mini league for a game or whatever, or or like maybe, I mean, I don't know if this would be kind of like akin to gambling, but like set up a mini game mode that is like 10 so coins to enter or something. Winner of this game will win the pot or something like that. I don't know if that would be classified as gambling and because it's so coins, but that would be cool. I'd love to make like a mini league with like 8 other managers and be like 10 so coins entry, the winner takes it all, like on this game, on this fixture. And then things like that would be really nice to do. I'd really love to know a little bit more. They may have sent out the information, I'm not sure, but how that rating works. I'd love, at the moment, I'm assuming it's just like how many games you've won against how many users, etc. But it'd be really interesting to know how that ELO rating works, because I for one would love to see a bit more of that introduced into the overall kind of like Sorare manager matrix, if you like. So like your kind of game score based on like how you performed versus like how the algorithm would have expected you to perform. Like, have you outperformed? Like cap mode's particularly good, isn't it? Because you have to pick a team with a cap score, but that has to outscore its expected score. So things like that be really interesting to see if more of that's kind of introduced into, not necessarily like a prize pool kind of scoring, but at least for things like this, just to sort of see like what your kind of like gameplay rating is. And I like seeing stuff like that. I remember like Sorare Data did it, didn't they? When they had their kind of side game that they built, they had an unusual way of rating.
For sure. I really enjoyed that, it was just, that was pure fun, and it was 11 aside, which was a wee bit nice as well. That was good fun, seeing I can play a back three of like Hakimi and Harwood Bellis and Tio Hernandez, and I love that kind of building an 11 of your team. It just felt like next level. But I do feel, we had this in our notes to kind of talk about as well, because the last like month-ish, you've done exceptionally well, mate, by the way, but it has been brutal for us mortals that don't have the Veermans and the O'Reilly super rares and stuff like that. It's been like, with the 270 cap that we had this month, I said it at the time, I felt that a lot of captain capable cards would be coming out of that division. We'd find them in regions, we'd find them in all-stars. And I found it quite hard for pulling cards when throughout 270 was going. But now it's going to be in 220. Now we have the Premier League competition coming out. We have 270 going back to normal. And, we're talking rivals, we're talking special weeklies with Dortmund stuff. They're always got those little special weeklies on the go now. It feels like this season there's always an AC Milan, a PSV, a Dortmund, a Bundesliga special something or other, which is quite cool. But it feels like when we came out of this international break, with the rivals, the recent kind of facelift that we've seen all across the platform on the site, the recategorization of some things, it feels like everyone that's playing Sorare, when we come out of this international break, this is like a really new landscape, a really new pro mode of prioritization. Where's the smart place to play? Where's the best place for your gallery? It feels like so many things will be not back to zero, but everyone will be like redesigning their plan of attack. More than ever.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited for the 220. I think the 220 mode is the one that makes the most sense. I think we might have touched on this last week, didn't we? But the more it's kind of sunk in, I think 220 is the ideal mode for like a kind of longer format, just for like people to have the opportunity to level up and win cards that will be better than they would have won, like just winning a reward in 220. I think that's one of the key takeaways, is when you took 270 out of the kind of prize pool, a lot of people are a bit upset because 270 does like historically give away quite good prizes anyway. 220 doesn't. But now if you take away those sort of tier 5, tier 4s, tier 3s out of the prize pool and go, right, sod that, we're not going to give all those cards away, but we are going to give away a couple of stars, a few tier 1s, a few tier 2s, whatever. And then it makes sense. That makes more sense, I think, than maybe giving away loads of tier 5, tier 4s that ultimately people tend to get a little bit upset with or feel a little bit like underwhelmed with when they win them. And that's regardless of any kind of like size of manager. If you kind of look at the Twitter comments underneath any kind of Sorare, how was your game week tweets, you just got loads of managers in there who are disgruntled with like a £5 like tier 5 rare win or something like that. But if you do look at some of these managers, that they are disgruntled with a £5 win, but they're playing with a team with a DMP goalkeeper and some really cheap cards. But even then, they're still a bit upset when they don't win like a household name. So I guess there's like, sometimes it's just people like maybe like not managing their own expectations. But I do think that this is an opportunity for people who wouldn't normally feel like they could compete to actually be able to compete and compete for actual rewards that they will get excited about. So yeah, I'm buzzing. I'm really looking forward to this, because there's a lot of cards that I normally just kind of chuck in to 220. I normally can put out a decent 220, but I wonder if I'm going to start actually going for it. I feel like you can go for this, can't you? But still, you can't go for it with your top cards anyway. So it's going to be those mid to lower tier cards in your gallery. If you've got a large gallery, you'll have quite a few of those that kind of just go unused most weekends.
Yeah.
So, if you put like a big hitter in there with a bunch of like cards that barely get used, you could do quite well out of this. And it's made me rethink some of the cards I listed recently, especially in super rare. I listed a few kind of like tier 4, 5-ish super rares up for like, 50 to 80 quids. Getting a few bites, people kind of like coming with like really like low ball offers in the hope that I just want the cash and rid of them. But I think that this 220 cap mode made me rethink some of those listings recently. One of them in particular was a Sturm Graz player, Ivan Ljubic, who I think I've had him listed various times through the season for like 50, 60 quid. No one cares. But I'm getting a few offers for him at the moment. And I think I had him listed at like 80 quid. And I thought, he's actually started the last 4 or 5 games. So cards like that will be ideal for this kind of game mode, especially in a super rare where it's like, he can put a 50 up, but his L15 is probably like 40 odd still from like the 10 odd fixtures beforehand where he was just coming in as a sub. And yeah, it's going to be really nice being able to compete for something exciting with a lot of cards that maybe don't excite you in your gallery that you've struggled to get rid of. And hopefully it kickstarts some interest on the secondary market for those cards that have gone on unloved for a few seasons now.
Yeah, I think like that. This is one of the things we'll have in the Spotify poll, so you can let us know if you're changing your priorities. If there's any division that moves up from being like the 5th one you create to the 2nd one, or you never played a team there before, now you're going to go for it. Because the 220, like you say, the card offering is fantastic for the scouting that you're going to have to do to maximize it. And I think, like listening to you talk there, I was thinking, I think on a lot of game weeks I could play a phenomenal 220 team, but I just never want to, like I actually avoid it. Like, these guys are too good for 220. Can I get them into 240 somehow, or something like that? But on the converse to that, giving out exclusively money only is this Premier League competition. Now, I know it's maybe divided a wee bit of opinion with how many in-season cards you require for it, but I think it's a really sheltered competition because there's just, especially like if we're talking about reds and blues and above and stuff like that. Unlimited, I think it'll be a good game because of the multi-entry. You can play 3 teams in there as well, but it is pure cash payout. And I love the fact that, like you could play your cards in that kind of duality of go into a cap mode, chase the cards, and then you've got a Premier League entry or 3 Premier League entries and you're just chasing money. You've got thresholds to do that as well, of course, but it gives you another angle to maybe go at that. And if you really do fancy, your Premier League knowledge, and depending on the prices of some limiteds and rares, I think in the market you can be quite agile to picking up an L15 cheat codes. Like I was looking for the Camp 220 video that I released on the channel a few days ago now, depending on when you're listening to this. But like Rodrigo Bentancur, for example, L15 is like under 30. Wow. Maddison's injured, blah, blah, blah. There's guys like that crop up once in a while. And if for the pro cards, like a limited or a rare, you can go and scoop them up. He can be very 220 capable, but the Premier League competition is also a 270 competition, So, it's not just going to be a Man City stack running out there every week scooping up the top dollar, So I do think that so I'd be really interested to see, because I know a lot of people built galleries to attack 270 to get better cards against not playing against big power Bayern stacks and stuff like that. So with the amount of competitions, the amount of, routes to goal that we have available at the moment, I'll be really interested to hear what the listeners are planning on doing. For me, like you mentioned it already there, Stish, like 220, I think the card offering, particularly when you're at your kind of stretch scarcity, the one that you've got less cards of and is your real kind of, I'd love to get up there. Those 220s really appeal to, I think, the people that aren't living in that division even more, because it is the cannon fodder that's going to be, the staple of a team that does 4 good scores to get you over the line or whatever it might be. So I'm really excited for 220. It'll go way up in my priority list from it's normally like, right next to training, right next to academy. Now it's probably going to overtake a few of them. So it's going to give me a lot of nice headaches, which is good. And I feel that for the last month, for the 270, it was the absolute opposite. I had less places to play teams. I had less headaches, unless you count that D1 conundrum that I had for 2 weekends by a fluke, kind of, because 270 wasn't open anymore. So I'm wildly excited for it. And this winter period is just going to be mayhem. Like, we're going to have all the teams finishing Champions League, Europa League, getting into their winter break. And then we've got a lot of the UK and Spain, by the way. If you look at Spain's fixture list, Spain play throughout they take their winter break in January. They don't take their winter break in December. So like this November, December period is going to be, some people are going to win some great stuff. And I hope it's me.
100%. And I think with the introduction of rivals, it'll be really interesting to see if they spice that up over the Christmas period as well, for people that are like playing at home on Boxing Day and stuff like that, for the big fixture calendar. They've got options here to, like, you know, really get people engaged with the platform and the product. So yeah, like, thumbs up to all the gang at Sorare. There's been some pretty good moves made in the last month or so, hasn't there? So plenty to be excited about. But yeah, you made a good point there. There's something that I hadn't really thought about with the Premier League one being 270 cap as well, because I forgot that, and I was thinking about it the other day, and I thought a lot of people are obviously going out trying to figure out what stack to buy. Which stack do you buy? We talked about it last week, didn't we? Had a little look at the fixtures, like the first sort of 6 game weeks. Who has the kind of like the fixture difficulty looking good? But yeah, I guess the one thing I was going to say as well, like, another issue that you do have buying a stack is you're only as good as your collection bonus if you're playing in this tournament, because anyone who collects Premier League cards, if you are the top Chelsea collector and you have all the number ones, or you have all the shirt numbers, and you've got all the current season ones, then you are going to be the strongest Chelsea stack in this tournament against anyone. And anyone else playing a Chelsea stack is the only thing they're going to be playing against you for is like the fact that they might have the differential in terms of the selection. Like, you went for, let's say you went for James, and they went for like Chilwell or something like that instead. And obviously that might not be the case at the moment, but yeah, you get the point that I'm trying to make. And I think that, like, with that in mind, I don't actually think that the optimum strategy for Premier League, if you're buying right now, is to buy a stack. You're going to need a bit more flexibility. You're going to need the squad players. You're going to need a lot of that. And I think that they obviously knew that when they realized it was going to happen. They had to cap it at 270. Obviously, there will be teams out there that you'll have the pick of the bunch and still be able to keep it under 270. But I guess it just sort of, it protects the rest of the players from a Man City, Liverpool, you know, at the moment, probably Man City or Liverpool, and maybe Newcastle stack. There's not too many other teams that will have
Mama Jam have a hybrid.
Yeah, I think that's how I would go. I'd pick maybe 3 teams, and then get like maybe 2 or 3 of the key components from those teams. Maybe pick 2 goalkeepers up if you can be, if you've got that. But yeah, like, I think we both spoke about it. It's not something that I'm going to be buying my way into. If I won, like, I did think the other day, if I picked up in that prize pool, if I won like an Onana, if I won like a Premier League goalkeeper from this season, then maybe I would buy a couple more just to open it up, because I've got previous season cards that play in the Premier League, but nothing really from this season. And I don't want to spend like 400 quid on a goalkeeper that I don't really need to use after this tournament. And I'm sure there'll be a few people playing rares that are in a similar boat. I was just having a little look on there now at like the amount of participants that have already registered for it. And I know you often look at this, Quinny, but there's only, I don't know if this is an indicator, but at the moment, of managers that have already kind of like thrown a little team in there. I know we're still a little while off, maybe like 10 days or something like that, a couple of game weeks or whatever, but over 300 people have already kind of registered a team on the limited one. 47 people on the rare, and only 3 on the super rare version of the game. So I wonder how many people we will have in those, especially the super rare. It does make you wonder, like, could you like nick a little couple of like cheap options and get in amongst it in the super rare? Because how many rewards are there? Let's have a little look at the prize pool. Top 15, you know, and we're talking about a minimum prize of $300 to get in the top 15. If there does end up only being like 50 entrants in that super rare version of it, then you would fancy chances, wouldn't you, at a little $300 payday at the end of every game week? So yeah, I might be keeping an eye on it, but I think the goalkeeper is going to be the main sticking point for most people playing this, isn't it? If you don't have a goalkeeper, or you don't have the means or want for a goalkeeper in the current season, or I guess in previous, I think my only option is Muric. He's my only Premier League goalkeeper, and he's not playing at the moment. So yeah, it feels a little bit out of reach for me unless I really want to like dig into the recent wins, start spending that Ethereum. But I'm enjoying watching it kind of stack up at the moment. So difficult to let it go once you're seeing it kind of return's been quite good, hasn't it? And I think it would be nice to win some more cash. I do love a cash reward, as do you, as does all of our listeners, I'm sure. But I just think like the potential outlay to really compete for me, it's a bridge too far. So I'm going to be excited about some of those cards being taken out of rotation in maybe champ, maybe it might hopefully make things a bit easier in some of the other divisions, but be interesting to see how that all pans out.
Danzo again made a great point in the chat saying he'll be doubling the entries when he has his free, because it is 3 entries per person. So if you're seeing 3 teams there for Super Rare, it's probably just Pranksy.
That's true, yeah. That's true. I forget that. So you can have up to 3 entries in any given division. So you know, you could win $900 if you got 3 like heavy hitters in that Super Rare division. So yeah, be interesting to see who does sit atop of these leaderboards. But I'm nowhere near having 3 or 4 cards of any Premier League team or any Premier League cards really in there.
We're definitely all rooting for Nanzo, but I'll put the blues and the blacks. We hope the big man gets the podium to himself.
Definitely.
Yeah. Hope Nando scoops it. Right.
I like that one. Some dad jokes.
Yeah. Hey. Well, Nando's a dad. He'll appreciate some dad patter.
Yes, true. Yeah. What else have we got to talk about, Quinny? We're obviously in the kind of midst of international break, aren't we? Are you using this time to do any scouting? Are you picking up cards? Are you getting rid of anything? What do you do? What does your like international break look like from a Sorare manager's perspective?
Well, I'm quite a deep end Sorare manager. I think anyone listening to this is probably aware of that. So normally in these international breaks, I do try and have a wee bit of, let's say, housekeeping on the club. You know, if I got any. So Basil botted a bunch of tier 3, tier 4 rewards I've been picking up over the last month, a few rares. Some guys that could have been quite handy in 220. I was in 2 minds what to do with them. But so I was looking down at the fixture list. I mentioned Spain earlier, La Liga. If you look through December, La Liga have a few fixtures that run alongside Premier League in Scotland, which is cool. And I think Italy actually play a little bit more than some people give them credit for as well. So I've got some Serie A players. And when I was looking through that, I kind of realized when MLS was going away, Ryan Gauld was a big presence for me. And, you know, when he disappears, you know, need someone to pick up that mantle because he was playing alongside my Europeans and he was, you know, getting in teams ahead of other European cards I had. So with him kind of going off season, I know I've got a bit of pressure on getting a gold level midfielder. And I came up with an interesting one. I'll maybe ask you this and anyone joining the chat what you think, right? I went after an auction. I didn't get it. We spoiler alert, right? This player has midfielder and forward cards available, right? He's clearly better as a forward, but I need a Ryan Gauld in midfield. And it was his jersey number that was on auction. And I thought, well, the midfielder goes less for the forward. The floor was like 100 and I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I tried to get a snipey offer in on auction and try and get it just below. I never got it. And I ended up going against some other guys, which I can tell you about in a second. But the player was Nabil Fekir. Now, there's a few reasons that I found that quite interesting because Fekir, if you look at the last 3, he's back. He's in the team. He's just not actually starting yet. He is the man. His L15 is rotten. It's very good 220 option immediately, you know, for a little while. And like, I found him quite similar to Gauld in the sense that Gauld was doing very well up front, playing up front, but as a midfielder card, you know, and doing all the things that Gauld does. Fekir is a midfielder card on it. Sorare data scores much less than the forward card does, but if he comes back in and he's playing up front in that Betis team, then the difference in points, I don't think it'll be as steep as maybe Sorare data would present it as being historically, because I think it'll probably shake out pretty well with the way the teams went. So I thought that was one that So I was trying to get a big hitting midfielder, a guy on the cheap because he's injured. He's went way off the radar at the moment. And alas, I never got him. I'll maybe try again, if that makes sense. But I've been trying to get some sneaky undervalue picks in that sense, Stish. The Celtic forwards have got some injuries at the moment as well. Dyson Maeda's out for about 6 weeks. Kyogo didn't go on international duty. So I went and picked up my first Celtic 3D card of the season, who's also a forward, and that's Yang Hyun-jun. And he'll be playing in place of Dyson Maeda, it feels like, while he's injured. So that's just a straight handcuff situation for me. And I managed to get him quite cheap. So I didn't get Nabil Fekir, but what I tried to get Nabil Fekir for, I got an in-season Jun, and then I sent a direct offer to one on the market for the rest of my change that I had in my wallet. I managed to get a first season edition David Turnbull, which comes into my Celtic collection. It's already up at, like 4%, 5%, whatever that's ticking along at. And he's been playing recently. So maybe I've got my gold replacement in Turnbull. I know some Celtic fans will spit their tea out at me saying that. But trying to get some guys that are underappreciated or undervalued in the market is normally what keeps me busy in the international break.
I do like that. I think that's a great tactic. And you got me looking at the market while you were talking there, because I haven't had a proper look at it for a little while. And I do wonder, obviously, with all of the hype around Premier League and everything that's going on, international break, winter breaks coming up, there is some potential bargains out there, isn't there? Especially at auction. If you can nick a little auction of a player that you have had eyes on, that is a good scorer, but maybe has taken a little dip in form, or is injured and is sat on the bench, or that's always smart business, I think. And yeah, I'm just having a little look. There's definitely a few players that are in my kind of favorites list that are available on auction in Super Rare at the moment. And given the talk we had earlier about that, not having those kind of like banger Super Rares for Champ, maybe this is the time that I need to be keeping my eye on the market for like the odd player that's maybe not being looked at by people at the moment. And like you mentioned, Fekir there is definitely one of those, isn't he? If he can come back and find that pre-injury form again. He obviously this season is the midfield card. I think you probably want the forward card of him from a previous season, but he's a good example of one of those players that you might be able to nick at a decent price that can push you into those, really competitive areas in the leaderboard. So yeah, as much as maybe at the beginning of this podcast, I wasn't thinking about dipping my toes into the market anytime soon. Having had a little look, I'm already now thinking, oh, there's a player or two. I'm not even going to mention who they are, but there's a few cards on the market at the moment that might help me. And yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on a few of these auctions. The rate of auction seems to have come down as well. That's another thing we've not touched on, but I think mpen10 on Twitter reposted an interesting graphic that came from Sorare Base that shows how like the level of mints has come down since auto buy has been introduced. It's like that has replaced like a large amount of mints, which is slowing down the supply and being brought into the new, the market. So if you team that up, like less minting with hopefully more purchasing and hopefully more new users through games like Rivals, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all pans out over the next, maybe, I guess, quarter. I guess they'll be looking between now and like March, maybe. But yeah, lots to be excited about, which is unusual for international break, isn't it?
I think with exactly what you're talking about as well in terms of that market scouring, the secondary market's the place to be, because a lot of people are maybe going to try and go buy a Nabil Fekir because he's a 220 cheat code for a few weeks or something like that. And to fund that, I'll go and sell this guy because he'll get sold quickly, or I'll get good money for this guy and I can buy 3 other people. Yeah. So I think the secondary market, especially when you talk about that mint rate thing being down, I know that doesn't really apply to supers and rares. I think that's more of a limited dynamic, but that's the first, this secondary market is where I got both my cards today. The Yang was on auction and I put a max bid to like £4 under the secondary market, and I got outbid within 10 minutes or something. So I was just like, oh, bugger it. Just went to the secondary market and got my bit. So I think the secondary market will have a good bit of life in it if you are looking to reposition, or if you've been waiting for kind of eyes to come to the secondary market again, because there has been a lot of focus from new season cards for a lot of reasons, just new users, people using money on a card, and then obviously some of these tournaments that are new season centered. Whereas, yeah, I think now, because people, especially the ones that are on platform already, want to maybe do some manoeuvring, the secondary market could be a wee bit more lively, because the list or play thing isn't as much of a problem in the international break. You're not worried about, oh, if I list this guy, then I can't use him for the next 2 days or for this game week or something. So definitely over the next couple of days, it's, watch the market with a keen eye, I think.
Definitely. I feel you on that, mate. But yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on it now. I'm quite excited at the prospect of potentially nicking a bargain or two here. But I say, we'll see if they turn out to be bargains, right? Over the next day or two, there's a couple of auctions I'm going to keep an eye on, I think. But yeah, super buzzing about getting back into this. I'm going to start building lineups probably today for the return of club football. But yeah, I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be going to the England game tomorrow. It's a bit of a nothing fixture, but I'm hoping to see Jude Bellingham in action, and fingers crossed for a bit of Harry Kane decisive action.
Bellingham's been sent home, mate.
Has he been sent home?
Bellingham and Colwell both get sent home like 2 days ago.
Oh, I saw the pictures of him training. I just assumed he was going to be all right.
Oh, maybe. Well, I'm 99% sure they get sent home.
Like, I was surprised.
Shoulder injuries, both of them.
I knew he had a shoulder injury from Madrid, but he did join the team for training, which I was surprised by. But I haven't seen any news since, so maybe he has returned. But I was surprised to see him in the squad. Full stop.
I got this for you, mate. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
3 hours ago it says he's absent from training, so maybe. Yeah, let's have a look.
Maybe you'll get to see Calvin Phillips instead then.
That'll be exciting. No, I'm not as big as he's all right, but he's not that dynamic, is he? He's not going to get me. He's not going to get me off my seat. I'd say that he's probably going to score an absolute rocket now.
I was going to say he's going to hit one from 40 now.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Bellingham and Levi Colwill have withdrawn from the squad 3 hours ago. Sky Sports. So yeah, I missed that, which is a shame. I was looking forward to seeing Bellingham in the flesh. Would have been the first time. But yeah, fingers crossed Harry Kane brings it home. I've got a decent looking lineup together for this weekend. I don't know if you've got much going on, but if I can find out, if I get any word of Joey Veerman potentially starting against Ireland, I think I have a really strong Rare Plus team. If I don't, then I think my midfield options are a little bit scuppered. And I'll be going into Rare or Cap mode 240 just to try and nick a threshold or two. But have you got anything this weekend, Quinny? Any teams, any lineups looking possible?
I've had a wee bit of a goalkeeper situation change. So the Bosnia goalkeeper, Sehic, the guy who moved to Saudi Arabia from Turkey, apparently he's injured. So I think that means the St. Pauli #1 goalkeeper, Nikola Vasilj. Excuse me, sorry, just fighting back a wee burp there and a hiccup. But I think he is #2, so he should be now #1 for this international break. So I had him in a team with Take Kubo, which is now bittersweet because he's DNP'd for the game week. But yeah, maybe I've got an all-star team that can have a shot, but I've not built it yet. I've actually built my teams for when club football comes back. I've done that already, but be wary when it does it. There is some guys playing international football. Cap values will change for some of them. So if you have international players, when you get halfway through it, you're kind of like, oh, it's pointless because this guy's going to play 2 games and his score's going to move, and then maybe he's better for 220, or maybe he's not possible for 220 now, or whatever else. So it's fun to do just to see if you have any, like, I don't have a keeper for that division, or I need a forward to cover. But beyond that, you'll get halfway through it and you'll go, nah, I'm better doing this next week.
Oh, I hear that. Definitely. Yeah, I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on the news, just hoping I'll start to feel really excited if Veerman looks like he's going to start against Ireland, which he could do. But I think that from some of the reports I read, a lot of the kind of journos don't think he'll start. But, it's a toss-up between him and maybe one or two others. And on current form, he maybe will get in ahead of a few. But, yeah, I'm just going to be keeping a keen eye on any Dutch football news over the next few days. If there are any Dutch listeners out there, be sure to tweet at me if you hear anything that might be of interest to me on the subject of Joey Veerman. But, if he's not playing, then, maybe try and nick a threshold or two. But, yeah, just going to start just going to start looking ahead. I think it's a good time to start looking at potential Cap 220 situation and seeing, as always, seeing where we plug these cards in. But I think it's all to play for, as always, Quinny. I think that's about it. I think that about wraps us up. We come up to that hour point. Great talking to you as always, Quinny. We had a lot to talk about considering it was the international break. And shout out to everyone who's been in the chat. We've had some good conversation back and forth from the chat this week. If you are new to the podcast and you didn't know, we do this live usually on a Thursday afternoon, about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then it goes live via Quinny's channel on YouTube, Quinny 3001, and also via Spotify. If you're not listening via Spotify, you can catch it there. Apple Podcasts, all of the places that you find your podcast, you'll find it there. So please do like, subscribe, share, comment, everything that you should normally be doing. And we will catch you again next week, and hopefully with a bit of end product to report. Let's try and make it 3 weekends in a row. Fingers crossed on this end. Good luck, Quinny. Good luck, all the listeners. And we'll catch you again same time next week. Cheers, everyone.
Good luck, everyone.